We're going live on YouTube now.
Okay, so
Let me
shall we
just,
open up the meeting and we'll let people in as they arrive?
okay, hold on one moment.
Okay, tell me when you're ready.
I let everyone in.
Okay, so I'd like to welcome everyone to the February 16th meeting of the Sag Harbor Zoning Board of Appeals. If you'd all stand, we'll salute the flag. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Could I get a motion to open the February 16th meeting?
So moved.
Second.
I second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Who made the motion?
I think I did. Oh, no.
Alex and
Yeah,
Scott? If you guys can, when you do that, if you can just raise your hand so I can see, because when everybody talks, it's jarbled.
Sure.
Good idea. Thank you.
Now we should be there.
So in the next motion, could I get a motion to approve the minutes from the January 19th meeting?
So
I'm not going
moved.
to make that motion because I wasn't there.
Okay, Ham makes the motion, second.
I second. Scott.
Scott seconds. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Ham, you're muted.
Ham, can you unmute yourself?
So it was Alex and Scott.
Come a little closer to me.
Okay, now they're open. Yeah. Okay. Who's that? No dancing.
Don't call.
Two items of correspondence that we need to review. The first is Glover LLC at 14 Scilly Avenue. Did someone want to speak to that?
Sure. Good
Ryan
evening.
is here, so I just unmuted him just in case he wants to.
Okay.
And I did draft a resolution for the board after he speaks, if you're so inclined.
Yes.
Sure. Good evening, members of the board, Mr. Chairman. Brian DeSessa, attorney for the applicant. We were here last year obtaining approval for this house at 14 Vitale Scilly. It was in a flood zone, as the board may recall, which required it to be elevated, thus pushing it into the sky plane. Based on circumstances and based on revisions, the applicant has decided to eliminate the top floor of the building, thus changing our sky plane request from the previous, the board had previously approved 3,135 cubic feet of sky plane. With the removal of the second story, the applicants now seek that relief to be revised to 993 square feet. Everything else remains the same.
Okay.
I mean, I'm happy to explain more. I thought it was pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and I think we've read it. So this is something to board that a previous board had granted all the variances for. It didn't get built. Now it's come back. Most of the variances have been reduced, and the pyramid variance that we had okayed has been significantly reduced. So it doesn't seem to me any reason that we wouldn't approve this revised plan. So I'd like to just ask for a motion that we agree to amend the previous determination to include this new survey, site plan, and elevations.
So move.
Second.
All in
Alex.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Mr. DeSessa.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You too. The next item of correspondence is Mark Madden, 11 Carver Street. This is a request to extend the application for 1 year. You might remember that there was variances were granted and one was denied. So this is and they haven't been able to get to it for various reasons, including COVID and legal pursuits and whatnot. So this is a motion to extend for 1 year those variances that were granted. So it doesn't seem a problem to me. So I'd like to ask for a motion to grant the 1 year extension for 11 Carver Street. Can I get a motion?
So move. So move.
Okay, Ham, okay, second.
I second.
Scott seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? No. So going on to previous applications, there are 9 of them that are being adjourned at the request of the applicant. So for the benefit of the public, anyone that might be here for those, I'm going to read through them quickly, and then as we come to them, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. So this is just really quickly. The first one is Page 63 Main Street, Cremoris 41 Main Street, Taylor 5 Green Street, Schechter 60 Hempstead Street, Loeffler 152 Hampton Street, Vax 31 Long Island Avenue, Harbor Holdings 110 Division Street, Rysam Properties at 24 Rysam Street, and Mariani at 70 Glover Street. Okay, so
Tim?
the first,
Tim, could I ask you just to go through those again a little more slowly? I just want to make notes as to which one.
well, I'm going to ask for, if it's okay, as each one comes up, I'm going to ask for a formal motion to adjourn it.
Oh, okay.
Will that help you?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay. That's why I read it quickly. Thanks. So the next one is that we will be discussing tonight.
No, you
Is,
didn't make a motion for 63 Main Street for Page. It's the first one.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Can I get a motion to adjourn Page at 63 Main Street?
So moved.
I so
Alice.
moved. Oh, I
So
second.
Susan, Scott.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
14 Rogers Street.
I'm
the
just
stone
gonna
application.
unmute them. Rick.
I unmuted?
Yes, you are. How are you?
Good, thanks, Carrie. How are you?
Good.
Okay, so it's our turn, I guess.
Yep, you're up.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm here once again with my wife, Kate Stone. I'm Alex Stone. We are the owners of 14 Rogers Street. Carrie, can you allow me to share a screen so that I can go through our presentation? It's probably...
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, can you see my screen?
Nope.
Yes.
Yes? You can see it?
Yes, we
Yep.
can.
Great. Okay, so I'm just going to do a summary once again because there were a lot of variances we had requested originally. I just wanted to catch everybody up once again on where we are and what we've changed so that we can get into the conversation most quickly. So this first screenshot here is just of the original application. There were 10 variances to begin with. Since that time, we have eliminated 4 of the variances completely and significantly reduced 3 of them. So only 3 of the original variances remain as they were. We'll go through what those are in a second. So the requests that we vacated since the first meeting, the first one, we're no longer looking for a front yard setback relief. We have eliminated a front door overhang we were originally looking for. We are not requesting a 3rd story. That was a mistake by Mr. Priato. He didn't have the cellar calculations. We have since provided those showing that the lower level is indeed a cellar. So we do not need a 3rd floor. Side yard setback relief. Originally, we were looking for this for a patio, which we have since not even just relocated, but removed entirely. And number 4, we were looking for a variance originally for a rear yard setback relief for some pool equipment, and we have since moved that, so there's no relief requested there any longer. In terms of changes since the last meeting, number 1, most importantly, the board requested that we get our hands on this engineering report or drainage study. Board suggested that, they believed me, of course, that Rogers Street has a significant flood problem, but wanted some sort of a report to substantiate that for the record. So Ms. Vale was kind enough to help make sure that that FOIL request that we submitted in August was finally approved. And so we have since gotten that report. We sent it to the board. I've got some screenshots of the most important elements of that report that I'll share in a moment. Number 2, in terms of the rest of the changes were about the pool. We reduced the length of the pool by 2 feet and shifted it to the east by 7 feet to allow more room for some possible future septic work. We also narrowed the pool by 2 feet and shifted it south by 3 feet so that we were no longer looking for quite as big of a setback relief against the village sump. we were able to actually double the setback from our original request. So we're hoping that that was helpful. And then we've overall just reduced the size of the pool and removed a patio as well to reduce the overall lot coverage by almost 200 square feet. And so the requests that we're looking for, where we stand at this moment. So the pyramid relief request is still there so that we can elevate the home due to the flood concerns. The side yard setback variances are still requested to enclose the existing already roofed and partially enclosed side and rear porches. The side yard setback variance is still requested to enlarge the parking court slightly so that we can fit a second car off street. The lot coverage variance is still requested, although we've reduced our lot coverage from what is already existing and previously approved. So we've reduced that slightly. And then we are still looking for a slight side yard setback against the village sump for the pool. So let me just quickly show you some screenshots that I think were the most important elements of the report.
Before you finish before you finish summarizing the variances, I don't think that we know about the reduction of the swimming pool size, and what is the side yard setback that's now required?
Yeah. So this was the site plan I had before you last meeting, which if we zoom in on this, you'll see that what we were requesting was 5 feet for the equipment and the pool against the sump. That is now 10 feet in both cases. So the request went from 5 feet to 10 feet. We narrowed the pool, we shortened it, and we shifted it further to the east to allow more space for a potential septic upgrade in the future. And
what is the new size of the pool?
A little less than 11 feet by 24 feet.
Okay.
It's 10.8 by 24, Tim.
Yep.
Thank you.
Go back to your prior slide that shows the list of the variances that you were currently asking for.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Could you just back up one slide, not all the way to the beginning?
Okay.
Just wants what the variances that you're requesting.
Oh, that we're still requesting. Okay.
All right, that's what I wanted. Just a minute.
Yep. Would you like me to continue?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yes.
Okay. So in terms of the report, I took some screenshots, which are here on the screen in front of you. I think most important, finding from the report is right here at the bottom. Based on the proposed grading plans for the Rogers Street Basin prepared by this engineer firm, the Rogers Street Basin has a total storage capacity of approximately 28,000 cubic feet. The table below contains the volume of stormwater generated for the 2, 5, 10, and 100-year design storms. There's that table. And based on these results, the Rogers Street Basin lacks the storage capacity to contain the 2-year event. So again, 28,000 cubic feet is what the sump is currently in terms of size. And as you can see here, in a 2-year event of 3.5 inches in a 24-hour period, you're talking about 47,000 cubic feet. So as they say, it's not even equipped to handle a 2-year storm. All of the water that comes from any storm, from any of these streets, anything inside of this dotted area here, it all flows down the streets and enters the sump through one single channel that's in front of our home on Rogers Street. It comes in from the north, it comes in from the south. All of the water that goes into that sump has just this one entrance right next to our house. And so again, that's the problem here is you've got this one location in this vast area that takes water from all the surrounding streets. And when you get a big storm, not only does the sump fill up with water very quickly, that the water that runs down Rogers Street can do so pretty violently. And that is really the chief concern and why we're looking to raise the house. So this was, and then I already showed you the changes that we've made to the pool since we last spoke. Again, as of right, we can build an 8-foot wide pool on this property, and given the coverage that we have, we could have made it an 8 by 65 pool. didn't think that that was, reasonable. So we did understand the board's, desire to see the setback request at least reduced, the pool size potentially reduced, some of the coverage reduced. So that's what we've done here in this latest proposal. We've reduced the coverage that we're asking for. We've taken it almost 200 square feet below what exists and is CO'd on the property at the moment. And we decreased the setback request from 10 feet to 5 feet against the sump. And thank you.
The second variance on your list of 6 is, okay, I got that. I just have a couple of questions if you don't mind.
Of course.
Tim, is it all right? Are we ready for that?
Yes, I was just going to say, are there any questions from the board?
Okay, thanks. Weren't some improvements done after Sandy?
After Sandy was what year? 2000. I don't know what year Sandy was. The previous homeowner is the one who built the home the way it is right now.
Right.
And that was 2008, I believe, was when that work was done, 2008 or 9. It was since that time that I think, she was pretty unhappy that she didn't do more flood mitigation, because it was 2010 here, as you can see from this newspaper clipping, when she had some of her flood issue, her more recent flood issue.
Have you experienced any kind of flooding since you've owned it?
Well, yes. The problem with the sump right now is it hasn't been cleaned out in quite a while. So there's a lot of silt at the bottom of it that, periodically the sump needs to be cleaned out. And so it's undersized already. And when the silt builds up on the bottom of it, it drains even worse. And so we've seen a number of floods already in the couple of months that we've only owned the home since August, and we've seen it overflow already. Now,
it's just, Susan, so you know, it's difficult for the village to get into the sump to maintain it. So they don't maintain it regularly. And what happens is it silts up on the bottom, and it becomes like a bathtub, and it holds water instead of draining it away.
Yeah. So we've actually spoken to, I'm sorry.
I'll tell you what my only concern is. In many jurisdictions, if someone came in to raise their house, they would require a flood study showing that it would not impact others. And I think the only feature that sets you apart from the other people on the street is it your driveway that is access to the
No, our driveway is not access to the sump.
So where is it, in that drain right there?
This is the drain. This is our driveway. The drain runs underneath the sump driveway, essentially. Right. So they have this driveway that sits above the drain pipe there.
Well, anytime you build a foundation up, it impacts the adjacent property owners in terms of their flooding. And it's one thing the village has never done. They have not required applicants to submit floodplain studies when they've been raising their houses. And it changes the way the water runs. It's not something that you or I can figure out, but a floodplain engineer can figure out by a report. So that is my only objection to the way that to raising the house, and the only objection. Because what I'm fearful of is it will increase the flooding of the other houses on the street, and not all of them can afford to raise their houses. And it won't be your fault. It'll be the fact that the information was not provided.
So, well, actually, Susan, I think what would have more impact on the flooding wouldn't be actually raising the foundation, because the house is itself just going up. It's more the raising of the land around it.
Correct.
Because as you rate, but they're not raising any land.
No.
They're not filling. They're not going to fill anything. All they're doing is taking the box that is there and making it a taller box. So that won't actually have any impact on the flooding. It's not gonna throw more water onto neighbors by just raising the box of the house. If they raised all the land, it would, but that's not what they're talking about doing.
You're not
No.
thinking of raising the property at all by adding extra soil before you raise it with a
Strictly
solid
lifting the
foundation.
house, just strictly
Pardon?
lifting the house.
There's
Yeah,
no
and
fill. There's
our
no
house-
fill going in.
Our house is not only the closest one to the drain, it also sits the lowest, our ground floor sits the lowest of any of the surrounding homes as well. So we're just, yeah, we're strictly lifting the box and not raising the land.
Thank you for clarifying.
Sure thing.
Other questions from the board before we turn to the public?
Yeah, the setback from the sump pump
Yes,
from your pool is going to be how many feet?
10 feet. And it's not a sump pump, it's just a sump. There's no pump in there.
And you have not had any water from the sump pump, from the sump reservoir in your backyard?
So we actually have not. You know, our backyard sits slightly above all of the surrounding backyards, and so it overflows. Like, the main concern for us has always been the channel flooding in front of the house on the street, because that is where every time there's heavy rain, the water really cascades from both directions in front of our house and can hop the curb and start heading towards our living room. The backyard is, of course, because the sump is undersized, is at risk. We have not seen water in our backyard yet, though, because our backyard is a little bit higher than all the surrounding yards. And so the surrounding yards actually have to fill with water first before it gets into our yard. So fortunately, we haven't had a flood in our backyard yet, but we've seen already in the couple of months we've owned the home, some pretty violent rivers of water coming down the street in front of our house. And that's what really scares us first and foremost.
Could you answer one more question?
Sure.
How many pools are on Rogers Street? Do you know?
Off the
Well,
top
there are-
of my head, I'm sorry?
I was gonna say, there are two pools on the other side of the sump and adjacent
Yeah, so
properties.
there's one on our side. There's actually, there's one on Rogers Street on our side. There's one on Latham Street that's directly next to this. There are two that are bordering the sump itself. One on Rogers Street and one on Latham Street. And then there are two on the other side of Rogers Street. And then there's one on Henry Street.
And do you know if any of those have been granted a variance?
I don't believe so. I believe the pools on that are at the corner of Henry and it's Latham, correct?
Here's an aerial. There's one here, one
Those
here.
Yeah.
those two pools did not require variances, I don't believe.
Well, to me, it needs to be a variance-free pool, so I don't want to create a precedent in this location.
Okay, well, we can talk about that when we do a straw poll, but are there any other questions? Let's turn to the public. Is there anyone from the public that wants to speak to 14 Rogers Street? See anybody out there, Carrie?
I don't. I'm looking. There's quite a few people on. Nope, I don't see anybody's hand raised. Nope.
Okay, if there are no other questions from the board, then I'd ask for a motion to close the public hearing and we'll have a discussion and take a straw vote on this.
So move.
I second.
Susan
And
moves, Scott
Susan and
seconds.
Scott. Yep, thank you.
Could we take down the screen and just go back to the normal?
Yeah, do I need to stop sharing, Carrie?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do now is have a discussion among ourselves and try to come up with a what we call a straw poll, which gives the applicant an indication of where the board is going. And then the applicant can make a decision about either to withdraw it or to go forward based on what you hear. So at the end, we can summarize our comments in a formal statement about the 5 measurements that we use in going over these things. But I could just kick it off and give my thought on it, which is that and I think we should go over it variance by variance. In terms of the first variance, because of the flooding problems that are well known on this street and go back quite a ways, I don't have a problem with raising the house 2 feet, and we would write our decision very specifically that this was because of flooding in this area, and that the amount that the house was being raised was limited to 2 feet, and that any future applications might possibly be limited to that same amount, so that we don't have a lot of houses that are being raised 6 and 8 feet, which sometimes happens in FEMA zones. In terms of the side yard setback for the 2 additions, because the footprint of the house is not being changed, that it's just that the porches are being closed in, because of that, I personally wouldn't have a problem with granting that setback, where if the footprint didn't exist, normally that level of variance would be too significant for me to agree to that. The next one on increasing the parking area, which requires a setback. In this case, getting more cars off the street on that particular street seems like a benefit to everyone on the street. So I don't have a problem with that either. The side yard setback for the swimming pool, because of flooding problems in backyards, including this one where we have a photograph of somebody that's in waist deep water, and the fact that there is enough area in the backyard to have a pool without a variance, it seems, my opinion would be that we not grant any setback variance for that the pool can be built as of right. And that kind of summarizes my thoughts on it. So granting the variances except for the pool setback. So who would like to go next and run through what they're thinking? Is Susan?
I agree with Tim, but I don't think that any of these variances, and I'll just put this in for the record so we don't have to go back. I don't think there's any undesirable change that would be produced. It's not, these variances are not substantial. And there does not seem to be community opposition, and there's a benefit to some of the variances, particularly as it relates to flooding. I will say, however, that I agree with Tim about the setback for the pool, and am in agreement that all the other variances are acceptable.
Okay, Ham?
I basically concur with you in terms of the flooding and the raising of the house, and I sympathize with them, and I have no objections to that. I just want to revisit the setbacks. Did you indicate that there would not be a variance for the pool?
In my request?
No, Tim, what did you say?
It was going to be my vote to not grant any setback variance for a pool.
And mine too.
I concur with that, because I feel that taking into consideration they have had water in the past and they can build a pool without a variance. And the sump pump is there and the sump reservoir is there. I feel that I would not grant a variance.
Alex?
I'm in agreement with all the arguments made and your summary, Tim. And while I appreciate the arguments behind trying to position the pool in a way that's furthest away from the neighbors and closest to the sump area, in the end, I don't think there's enough justification to seek a variance on the pool setback. So I'm comfortable, frankly, either way, because I think they did make some accommodations to increase that variance or that setback from 5 to 10 feet. But on the whole, I'm in agreement with the rest of you that there's no real need for it, so let's not grant it.
Scott,
Yes, I agree with what you said, Tim.
okay, thanks. Joe, did you have any comments that you would like to make?
No, I agree with all the points, particularly the ones Susan made about community support for what they're doing. So I'm in agreement.
May I make one other observation? I think we need to distinguish this. This is really for Liz. In our decision, we would need to really distinguish this in terms of the flooding issue and the unique nature of the property, and particularly as it relates to the pyramid variance and raising the house.
Absolutely.
Liz, do you need any more from us?
Nope, I think we have enough to go forward.
So let me check with the applicant. You can withdraw this with no prejudice or go forward and we'll write the decision as you've heard it described.
So can I remove the pool variances from the application and just go with the ones that are related to the other variances that were discussed?
Sure, you can write a letter to that effect to the board.
So
Okay.
then you'd be withdrawing it without prejudice.
Oh, and what happens? So what happens if, so how does it
Plus, you have
work?
to update your survey if you're going to take it off. If you don't want the board to deny the pool variance request, you have to update your survey to show no pool or a pool in a conforming location. And you have to put in a letter requesting to remove variance for the pool.
But now, because it's actually helpful for
But
all.
I can ask for the approval on the other variances now. I'm sorry, I'm a little confused.
We would be inclined to write a decision that grants all of the variances and denies the setback variance for the pool.
Okay.
That allows you to come back later with a new application to build a pool that doesn't require a variance.
Understood, but I would never again be able to ask for a pool variance at all. Is that what it does to the pool?
Just in that location.
That location. Okay. All right. Yeah. So I'd like to move forward then with the vote here.
Okay.
Okay, so can I get a motion then to instruct our attorney, Liz Vale, to write a favorable decision with one denial on the pool setback as we've described? Motion?
So moved.
Susan made the motion. Who's making a second?
Alex, second.
Alex, second. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, board.
Moving on, the next one is Taglitch, 34 High Street.
Lori, you there? Lori?
Carrie, can you hear me? It's Jean at LPS.
Oh, hi, Jean. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Okay, so I noticed a couple of, well, first of all, the description is not what it was.
Could you give me your name, please?
Oh, sure, Jean Galante, Land Planning.
Thank you.
So last month when we discussed this, we had changed it, but it's still showing that we were going for the pool and the accessory pool equipment and the side yard setback. At the meeting last month, we had, prior to the meeting, proposed to do a hot tub. So the only variance would have been to put the hot tub in the yard. That was the variance that we had discussed and that you had approved.
We asked you to come back to confirm the depth of this so-called hot tub and also confirm what the planting plan would be to screen it from the street.
Yeah, you should have gotten something. We had on January 29th, I dropped off an application for a certificate of appropriateness. And with that also for the ZBA, there was a photograph of I think the main thing you had talked about or were concerned about was how Franklin was going to be shielded. There was a picture of that.
I'm
picture
pulling it.
of-
I'm gonna pull it up now if I have it.
Okay, also a picture of the fencing and a picture of the hot tub. And the hot tub depth is 4 feet 2 inches. So it does put it clearly over the 24 inches and would require a dry well. We had,
Yeah, that's really a swimming pool depth. I think hot tubs in the code are 18 inches. Anything over 18 inches is considered a swimming pool. Not that it matters, but we just want to get the terminology correct.
so yeah, I believe last month you're correct. You were calling it a pool. It was over the 24 or perhaps it was 18 inches. And you also want, that would require a dry well. So after the meeting, we had the survey updated, which you should have a copy of that as well. We had we had a dry well and put on the survey behind the hot tub, closer to Franklin. There was a dry well added. You'd also asked to have there had been a pond that was no longer on the property. That was taken off the survey, and the hot tub was not the hot tub. Excuse me. The dry well was put essentially where the pond had been.
Jean, when did you send this?
January 29th.
And under you? Or did Lori send it?
No, dropped it off. Put it in the box downstairs.
And it was with a certificate of appropriateness?
Yeah. Did you get any of that?
The board did not.
I don't have anything in our bin for ZBA. Do you have it? Do you want to send it to me and I can view it? I can put it on the screen.
Yeah. Hold on one second. Do you have access to? Did you ever get the certificate of appropriateness stuff? It was all basically.
I don't have anything in the ZBA. I can't look for.
Okay.
The ARB stuff at this time.
Okay, hold on. Let me just put an email together with it on there.
Do we want to do this now or should we put this off till next month?
I have one question. I missed the hearing last month. I think we need to put it off, and I would like to ask Liz how we distinguish this from a similar case where we, obviously were involved in litigation.
I'm sorry, that question was for Liz, not for me, correct?
It's for Liz. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I mean, each case we can distinguish based on the property features and the actual size of the property and the proposed construction and what the variance is actually being granted for. So that's how we'd have to work that in.
Yeah.
This property is rather unique in that the only part of the property that touches the street is a corner. It's not like any of the other cases where a full property line is actually at the street.
Yeah.
It's really just touching at a corner.
Yeah, if you have the survey in front of you, Susan,
Do you see it?
Strange.
it's just it's not the whole edge of it. There's another property between this property and Franklin
I
Street.
know, we granted
It
a
just
variance for
touches
hot
at
tub.
the corner.
Yeah. We granted a variance. for hot tub.
Also, if you weren't there last, this is going to be above ground.
Yeah.
It's 4 feet above ground. That's why it's being called a hot tub, I guess. To me, it's an above ground pool, but
Right,
whatever.
that's what it is. It's being called a hot tub because
all right. So we have this new survey in front of us. I can't really read it, but is where's the dry well? Is that the circle?
Below it. No, that would be the cesspool. Look below it.
Oh, right
and there's-
here.
Yeah.
This is the cesspool, and at the bottom of the property, that's the dry well, right? Where the pond
That's
used to be.
Where the pond used to be.
Right. Okay. And then is there a description of what the screening would be down in that corner?
It says
There's
that-
picture of the fencing. If you, there also should have been a picture of the site, a site photo that shows down on Franklin. Let me see if I have that as well. In that one corner where it touches onto Franklin, there's just a little opening of the bushes there because there's a gate so you could walk through for egress purposes.
So this is the fence?
That's the proposed fence. The section that touches on Franklin already does have some screening. There's one open area, but because it's somewhat elevated from Franklin, the fence would take care of anybody looking into the property.
How tall is the fence?
Well, it would be 4 feet. We're on a front because
Right.
it touches even just on that point. We're considered a front yard, so it would be 4 feet there, 6 feet on the sides.
Yeah, but if the pool is raised, elevated 4 feet, and I did drive the property, it slopes down. How can you not see the pool?
Well, because I think there's enough, if you're standing on the property, I think you would notice that there's enough of an elevation where the fence then going up 4 feet, you're not going to, from Franklin, be able to look up over the fence and see the pool. They're open to do any additional, but I think, we felt that the fence would cover that enough. But if it were your thought that we needed to put some additional shrubbery there, he'd be happy to do that as well.
I don't think that fence is gonna, you're talking about somebody who's walking on the street, not driving by. Is that what the point is, I guess?
Yeah, I think driving or walking pretty much. There is, well, you've driven by, so you know that there is a bit of an elevation.
Yeah,
But
what is it? Isn't it about 10 or 15 feet going up?
Do you mean walking from the street up or the elevation?
The property, from the rear forward toward High Street, where the pool is located, isn't that about a 10 to 15 foot grade change?
Yeah. Yes, it probably is. And then you've got 4 feet on the fence.
And then the
So-
pool is 4 feet.
Oh,
so-
but no, once you get onto the property, the grade changes from Franklin to about where the fence would be. From there, it fairly flattens out. The grade does not continue to rise much towards the house at all. It really, for the most part, is somewhat flat through there. The biggest grade change would be from where the fence is to where Franklin is.
I have one other question and then I'll be quiet. Is it required that the setback from the cesspool be 20 feet or not? I'm just trying to understand.
No, because it's not an in-ground feature. This is above ground. So that 20 feet isn't applicable.
So if any above ground pool, the 20 feet does not apply.
As far as we understand, that's correct, Liz, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. We can double check.
Because we originally had wanted the pool, but based on the setbacks that we needed at side yard setback, we had discussed with you and we came up with going with the above ground with the hot tub / pool option rather than to continue on trying for an in-ground pool.
Yeah, it doesn't require, as far as I know, it doesn't require setbacks when it's above ground. It doesn't interfere in any way with the operations of the septic system.
But yet the dry well would be installed because it is over the 24 inches.
Right.
And it had been discussed last month that the dry well would be necessary because of that.
Just so you know, Susan, also the pool equipment, because this came up last time, is within the let's call it hot tub / swimming pool itself. There's no additional equipment beyond this structure.
Got it.
Okay, anyone else from the board before we see if there's any public comment? No, okay. Does anyone from the public want to speak to 34 High Street?
I don't see anybody's hand up.
Okay, if there are no other questions from the board, could I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
So
I
moved.
second.
Ham made the motion and Scott
Scott.
seconded it.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay, we can take that hot tub off the screen. So
Tempting, huh, Tim?
the only variance that's required then is the front yard, side yard variance. Scott, what's your feeling on that?
I guess I'm okay with it. I think that it might be nice to do some additional screening on Franklin. I mean, with plantings. That's my only other comment.
Excuse me.
Okay, so I'll ask the applicant, can we stipulate in our decision that there will be sufficient planting that you can't see it at all from Franklin as a foot pedestrian?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that would be.
Okay. Alex?
I'm fine with that as well. I think they've made quite a few accommodations and adjustments. And
Right.
I'm
Susan?
supportive of Scott's
I
point.
think I should abstain because I wasn't here last time and
Okay, okay,
I still have a problem with the
all right. Ham?
case.
They've made the necessary compromises, and I'm okay with the changes.
Okay, Joe?
I'm okay with it.
Okay, and I'm all right with it as well. I don't think there's an undesirable change produced in the neighborhood. The applicant wants to have some kind of a water feature, and it seems they made some compromises and it can't be achieved in some other way. The variance is not substantial, and we've granted similar variances in the past and the aim of not having swimming pools in front yards, whether they're front yards or side yards, is because we don't want them visible from the street. And that will be the case in this case. And so in that reason, I don't think it will have an adverse effect on the neighborhood.
Liz, can you distinguish this from the other case in your decision, please?
Absolutely. We can do that.
I mean,
I'm having a hard time with it, which is one of the reasons I'm abstaining.
I understand.
I think the main distinguishing thing for me is that it only touches Franklin at the corner.
Right.
That's the reason I think of it as.
That is significant. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so for those reasons, then can I get a motion to instruct our attorney to write a favorable decision granting the front yard variance for a pool? Motion?
So move.
Ham made the motion, second.
Second, Alex.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So we will have a written decision then granting, and we will state in the decision that adequate screening will be provided so that it's invisible from Franklin Street.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, have a good night.
Mr. Chairman, you want evergreen screening on that?
Yes,
Okay, great.
thank you. 41 Main Street has been adjourned. Could I get a motion to adjourn it?
So move.
I second.
Okay. The same with 5 Green Street. Could I get a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Alex. Second,
Second.
And 60
Who was that,
Hempstead.
Hammond, Alex?
yes.
Ham and Alex. 60 Hempstead Street. Motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Second,
That's Joe and Susan. 152 Hampton Street. Could I get a motion to adjourn that?
So move.
I second.
Ham and Scott. 70 Glover Street. Could I get a motion to adjourn?
so move.
So moved.
Susan,
Second,
Alex.
Susan and Alex. 110 Division Street. Could I get a motion to adjourn that, please?
so
So
moved.
moved.
Alex. Who's second?
And
I'll second.
24 Rysam Street.
So moved.
Alex.
And lastly, 31 Long Island Avenue. A motion to adjourn.
So move.
I second.
All right, moving on to new business. Could I get a motion to open the application for for 35 Carver Street. Motion?
So moved. Alex,
Second.
Alex and Scott. Is there anyone here to speak to 35 Carver Street?
Yes, the applicants are here. Hi, guys. How are you?
Hi.
Could you identify yourself for our record, please?
This is Daniel Newman and I'm Samara Swanston. We're married 35 years.
Wonderful.
How you doing?
Could you raise your right hand so we could swear you in, please?
Sure.
Do you affirm or swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
I do.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, please proceed. Tell us what you want to do.
We'd like to build a pool in our backyard. Our house faces Harrison Street, but our address is on Carver Street. And it's always been our dream to have a pool. It would be 10 by 22 in the concrete patio that's already been approved.
It's been present since we bought the house. There are fences preventing anyone in Carver Street from being able to see anything in that portion of our yard. And it's really, the front yard is on Harrison Street Extension, in my opinion, because that's where the front door is.
But in any case, that's our address is 35 Carver Street.
Right. Just so you understand the way our code reads, any part of the property that faces a street is considered a front yard. And
We
so there are
understand
houses
that.
in Sag Harbor that have 2 and even 3 in 1 or 2 cases front yards. So it's a technicality regardless of the address. If the part of the property faces a street, it's called a front yard. Just so that you understand that.
I got
Can
that.
I ask that we put the site plan or something up so we have an opportunity to look at it as we talk, as you talk us
Yes.
through what you plan to do?
Hold on 1 minute. I just have to make sure I got it. ZBA, we don't require PDFs of it. Mr. Swanston, did you send that to me?
I gave copies of that to the Zoning Board of Appeals and 11 copies of,
Did you email it to me?
no, I put it in the box.
Okay.
Fine.
I can scan it if you'd like me to.
I just think it would be helpful, but
Okay, hold on, let me scan it.
You have it in front of you, Susan, or not?
I don't.
Oh, does the rest of the board?
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
Oh, well, never mind. You guys.
So beside, well, we can continue looking for it, but perhaps we can have a discussion while we do that.
One thing just off the bat is we would need to know where the septic system for this property is located on the survey.
Yeah, unfortunately, the surveyor said I have to make another step. He doesn't do that when he does surveys, which surprised me.
Yes, you have to hire a separate company to come and locate it. They will triangulate it to the house for the surveyor. But you'll have to do that because we need to know where the septic is because there's setbacks from septic systems to swimming pools.
Okay,
And we apologize. The building department, the building inspector should have noticed this on the survey that it was missing and informed you of that.
Okay.
we can take those steps.
So unfortunately, we do need to locate the septic system on the survey.
Okay. How much time do we have to reapply based on this existing survey with that added on
Well,
to it?
we meet once a month. We meet once a month. And whenever you have, we're going to ask you some other questions about it, but whenever you have a new survey, you submit it. And if we get it a week or so before the meeting, we would take it up then.
Okay. Is this really a new survey or is it like an addition to the existing survey?
We're afraid that our survey might expire.
What's the
They
date
don't
on it?
expire.
April
Does-
4th, 2020.
It says revised January 5th, 2021.
Okay, so we have a year from that date, is that correct?
Yeah, generally within a year.
Okay, we'll do it right away, so I don't know exactly how long it'll take, but I
So
can do it.
I'd have a question, which is besides the front yard setback, I mean, the fact that it's in a front yard as the code designates it.
Right,
Part of our mission is, if there still needs to be a variance, to try to figure out with the applicant if there's a way to reduce the variance. So we might have some suggestions for you, but I'm wondering if the pool is relocated in somewhat, that especially the variance from the so-called front yard, which is 35 feet, we usually ask that if we are going to grant it, that at least meet the variance if it were a true side yard, which is 15 feet, not 10 feet. But perhaps it could be reduced even more. And I'm wondering if the pool ran in the opposite direction, if that wouldn't account
Perpendicular.
yeah, perpendicular to the way it is,
to the
yeah.
house instead of horizontal to the house.
Good idea.
If you look at your survey,
I'm
see
looking,
that edge where it's 10 feet to the Carver Street side?
yes,
We'd like to make that at least 15 feet. Now, whether you could just do that by reducing,
can we just move it away from Carver Street 5 feet in basically the same location?
well, we still would need to grant a variance. It's supposed to be 35 feet. So the more that you can give us, the easier it will make us to grant the variance. So a good part of that is 5 feet of it is the concrete patio.
Yes,
So I just wonder if the pool ran in the opposite direction, if that would be reduced as well.
Well,
Put
and
a
if you,
patio between the pool and the house and not have such a wide patio
right,
on the side, on the Carver Street side. It's just something for you to consider.
okay.
The larger the variance that's required, or the less variance that's required, the more chance there is that we're going to find a way to grant it. Part of what we're always concerned about is precedent, that once we have a couple of cases where we've granted certain variances, that becomes the standard. And so we try to not do that or do it. And part of our assignment is to grant the minimal amount of variance that still makes the project possible and useful for the applicants.
Liz, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
On this survey, we've got the pool within a concrete patio.
Right.
Does the code still read that patios touching the pool become part of the pool setback, or is it just the swimming pool?
I have to check. I also have to check and see what approvals there were prior to these for the property and see what had COs.
Because the pool isn't 10 feet from the property, the patio is.
Patio is, right.
And sometimes anything connected to the pool is considered a pool setback, but I don't know if our code is that way or not.
I have to double
I
check,
can't-
Scott, but
yeah.
I will let you know.
Scott, I think the building inspector assumed that it was, because that's why he said the
That's why I
setback
put the
for the
setback,
pool
yeah.
is 10 feet.
Right, but who, right, but who, do we know who reviewed
This
this?
temporary building inspector,
I don't
Peter
know.
Sarich,
Right,
assumed that the patio, if it abuts the pool, is part of the pool. But maybe
Right.
we'll go back and check that.
okay, that could work in
Do we
our
need to
favor
check that,
then?
Liz, or do we?
I will
do you
double
know-
check that for you guys, okay?
Especially because this is a temporary building inspector.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I'd say to the applicants that both because of COVID and because we've lost our building inspector for a month now, and we're dealing with temporaries, that it leaves us with some questions that we have to ask.
I have a question, a couple of questions if I could ask.
Please.
So one, a question for the applicant, which is that extra 5 feet on the right side of the pool, is that an additional section of concrete patio that you're going to add to the existing concrete pad or is that already there?
Already
It's
there.
already there.
So why is that 5 feet delineated? Sorry if I don't know that, but
I don't know. I guess
I-
it's 5 feet from the anticipated location of the pool.
Yeah, I don't know why it was drawn that
why
way.
doesn't it just read 40 feet across rather than 35 plus 5?
Well, the 5 is not part of the pool area. I'm not really sure why.
It is odd,
And then-
unless it
and
was
then
added at a separate time.
my second question is, so you're saying that entire 40-foot pad is there already before you've built the pool, is that true?
That is correct.
Before
When we bought the house, it had an approved concrete patio.
So I guess the question for Liz is if that's a pre-existing non-conforming patio with or without a CO, wouldn't by definition they be allowed to put a pool inside that concrete slab and not be actually violating anything because that's already.
Would they then need to actually measure from the pool instead of the patio, since the patio is pre-existing non-conforming?
Right. Well, that's a different measurement though. So you might
Right.
buy a little additional space between the setback there, which would grant or, satisfy our request that you try to minimize these setbacks. And then my only kind of final comment, and forgive me for giving you what will sound like a subjective one, but I would think from our standpoint, and per Tim's opening comment, we want to try and minimize the amount of variance granted if we can. And you do have a nice kind of parallel part of your property to the south there. And I would think that looking at that pool perpendicular to the house, because perpendicular to where it is
There's a
now.
problem with that, though. It looks flat, but it actually goes up a steep hill. So it would be a huge problem to build it up that hill.
Yeah,
And that
it'll
hill's-
probably be
that
uplifted,
hill's
not
close-
really on the ground.
That hill starts very close to where the pool is now.
It starts where the patio ends.
Oh,
It
really?
goes from there to the end of the property.
So it's not possible to turn it perpendicular, you're saying?
Unless
really.
Unless you lifted the pool, it will not be functional.
Well, you could dig out the hillside.
There's
Would
a lot
it-
of rocks in there.
Yeah, digging out the hillside isn't all that desirable, but yeah, we could dig out the hillside, but that
also
would be.
you're not going to be able to just chop a hole in the middle of this concrete.
Well,
patio,
that's the
right?
other thing that I was going to raise.
Patio
is
is going to be torn out completely. and
Worn
then
out. Yeah, it's going to be
replace it.
completely gone. Yeah.
I imagine so.
So that's why I think we do include that patio, because once it's torn out to put the pool in, it's no longer pre-existing.
Then,
Well-
yeah, we're
But
not.
can't they replace it? Can't they replace that same footprint around the pool?
Not when you tear it out.
No.
Really? Once it's gone, huh?
What it's just like demolishing a building. Whatever pre-existing, things that
lose
you
your
have
pre-existing
disappear and you have to
non-conforming
start
rights.
over.
So Tim, your suggestion about moving it, turning the pool, that's consistent with some of our other decisions in terms of asking applicants to simply turn it a different way for different
Right.
screening reasons and other reasons. So I support that. If you did that, would it, and this is a Scott question now, would it not be sort of elevated from as you turn it, if it does go down the hill, wouldn't you just be doing it above ground for the part of the time that it goes down the hill? It might even be cheaper.
I think it's up a hill, not down.
It's up a fairly steep hill. It's about 20 feet up.
Well, that doesn't work.
You'd have to dig
Well,
out the
but-
width of the pool from the hill.
But you could really just turn the pool in the same location 90 degrees and shove it back against that parallel property line. And it would be, you do have a problem with the shed. Maybe you'd have to move the shed or something. But
That would be better.
it would be better because it would be farther away from Carver.
Correct.
I mean, the patio is really going to have to be destroyed anyway.
Right.
One problem is also, I tried to visit the site, but I couldn't because the gate, I couldn't get in the gate and I couldn't see anything. So that was sort of didn't help.
It was all sort of iced in, which it probably isn't now due to the rain, but I'd ask the applicant, if you actually talk to a pool constructor to discuss both the fact that you might have to take out that entire patio and also the possibilities of making it perpendicular to the house and moving it over further away from Carver Street.
Well, we haven't we talked to a pool contractor and they definitely said they would build a pool. So it could theoretically be moved further away from Carver Street. But I don't think we can put it up that hill because the hill is pretty steep. So most of that property behind the house isn't really usable except for, climbing a hill and.
Well, I was thinking if you move the pool so that the pool itself was kind of parallel with that, the edge of the house that's up the other side of Carver Street, you'd need a much less variance from the setback to Carver Street.
That's
If
correct.
that makes sense. It might be helpful if you talk to a professional pool design company. They would explain to you that they're not really going to be able to maintain that concrete patio and still put a pool in the middle of it, that the whole thing will come out. And they might have some really good ideas based on their experience.
Yeah, and the good news is for you is that you're under your total building lot coverage. So you could, I think, would pretty easily build a new patio around your new pool and still be within your lot coverage limits.
So what you're saying is that basically we need to move our pool to the left and our patio to the left, even though we have a pre-existing non-conforming patio. Why can't we put the pre-existing non-conforming patio back since it was already approved when the house was built?
You lose the pre-existing when you tear it out, and you will have to tear it out to put a pool in. And a pool company will tell you that. You can't just chop a hole in the middle of that and drop a pool into it. They'll tell you it's impractical, it's expensive, it's cheaper just to take it out and replace it.
But if
it's actually impossible.
Yeah.
What's excuse me, what's at the patio that's next to the house? The other, they have two concrete patios.
That's
Right.
That is a parking pad there.
It's not really concrete, yeah.
It's a concrete patio, but it's basically a parking pad.
Yeah.
And we park our cars there.
It was covered with snow, Ham, when you looked at it.
Yeah, so.
Yeah,
Again, an approved concrete patio.
Can I, just so I'm clear on what Scott is suggesting, and that would be the concrete pad is going to be eliminated. Then the pool would be moved within 15 feet of the side yard.
To the left, in other words.
Yeah,
That's what I would think.
At least
Right.
the
At least.
the closer it gets to 35 feet, the better. But
Okay,
it definitely needs to be over 15 feet.
So the pool is moving and with whatever patio is replacing the one that was there, no closer than 15 feet to the side yard, correct?
To the front yard on Carver Street yard.
No, I'm sorry. I'm
No,
talking about
15, yeah, 15 feet from the west property line.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
so if that's, I'm just restating this so that we're
It's
clear.
13.7 feet now, so you're right. It
It
needs
would
to
be
be
the-
smaller.
It needs to go 15, no more than 15 feet over, so that you don't want to have another variance you have to request.
Correct.
And then you want to get the area from the pool to Carver Street as long as a distance as big as you can. So that removing the patio on that side of the pool when you shift it over will help. And it will further reduce the variance that you're requesting from Carver. I hope that helps you, that description. And then I think we'll require screening so you won't be able to see it from Carver.
Right.
Well,
That's already there.
there's already a fence around the whole property, and the whole rear yard has a fence.
Right, okay.
One thing that you might consider doing is, because you're going to have to go in front of the ARB, which is going to require a landscape plan. You
Right.
might go talk to a landscape designer, because this whole thing needs to be rethought with a designer. And then they could design in these elements that we're talking about to minimize the variances. Because part of it is not just conforming to zoning, but it's also giving you the design and the space that you want. And you can't really just utilize this concrete patio, because, as we said, it's going to have to be torn out anyway. I think that you really just need to rethink this whole thing, both with a designer, whether it's a pool designer who actually will lay it out, or a landscape designer who will lay it out for you. And then the pool company will just come and do the pool. But the ARB is going to require, correct, Liz? They're going to require a landscape plan anyway.
But
And
why would a landscape plan be required by the ARB when in fact the whole rear yard is completely fenced? So I don't understand, unless the exterior landscaping is problematic, why would we need any landscape plan for what is within our existing fence?
Well,
So-
I'll let Liz answer that.
Sure. So I would just say that you don't have to meet with a designer. You know, that's a recommendation from a board member. And that's a great recommendation, but you don't have to in order to apply for a variance from this board. As far as a landscaping plan, it is true that the Architectural Review Board does like to see landscaping plans to screen pools if they feel that the existing conditions are not sufficient. So it really depends on what, I don't know, we can't definitively say, oh yes, the ARB will demand a landscaping plan. They have to look at the plan and see, you know, your fencing and your existing conditions and decide based on that.
We have a 6-foot fence around our entire rear yard.
We don't know if they will require it or not.
I get the applicant's question though, right? I mean, let's acknowledge that it doesn't on its face make much sense if there's a 6-foot existing fence that they would require landscaping around a pool when there's already a fence to disguise whatever's going on. But
Right.
per Liz's point, you really have to check with the ARB, because we are not the ARB, and the ARB.
Well, and
may have
also,
some little
Alec-
reason.
Alec, they would want to know that the fence is going to stay. I mean, the
Right.
reason they require, quote, I'm going to call it a screening plan, is to ensure that, and we would
Well,
want the same thing, we want to know that the fence is going to stay so that you can't see the pool.
So there has to be some affirmative commitment to keep the fence.
Be
And
shown
that
on
could
a
be your
Well-
landscaping
I have no
plan.
problem.
Listen,
Doesn't this,
the only reason why we built a fence in the first place, because when we moved in, there was no fence and the neighbors were letting their dogs crap in our backyard. So every time we came back to our property on the weekend, it was covered with dog crap. So we built a fence so that wouldn't happen.
Right.
well, that's good. But isn't it because this is a front yard, the fence height is limited to 4 feet?
Well, that's true.
There's no fence in the front yard.
Yeah. But
This is
Carver
the-
Street
I'm
is a
talking about
front
the
yard.
technicality that Carver Street is a front yard. You have 2 front yards. One is on Harrison Street, one is on Carver Street.
Okay.
At some point, someone will tell you that you can have a 6-foot fence in a side yard or a backyard, but if it's a front yard, it has to be 4 feet. And that's why the Architecture Review Board, and probably our board as well, will need a planting plan.
That's right. Okay, now
Because you probably will be able to see over the 4-foot fence. And if we are going to allow the pool in that yard, we want to ensure that it can't be seen from Carver Street.
yeah, over a presumed 4-foot fence, which you may be forced at some point to put in lieu of.
I'd like to say, because I can kind of tell that maybe you're not used to how complex things have gotten in Sag Harbor since the last time you did any construction.
We never did any construction. We bought this house
Right.
15 years ago. I never did anything to
Well,
it. So
over the last 15 years, Sag Harbor's gotten a lot more complicated than it used to be. So to do many things, and especially putting in swimming pools, as you can tell from talking to us, there's a whole myriad of regulations that are required. And I'm sorry you're kind of learning all this the hard way, but it is the case.
I would
So-
say, per Tim's comments, if I may, we want you to fulfill your dream of being able to build a pool. And we think from looking at this that you'll be able to do it. You're just going to have to make some adjustments to your plan and again, provide the landscaping plan that was mentioned before. But, you should, there is a path here for you.
Have we given you enough information so that you
So,
can?
when the fence was put in, did she have was there a permit for that fence? I mean, it's been there.
I looked in, when I went to build the fence, in 2006, I looked in the zoning code and it didn't say anything about areas outside of the historical district, which we are. So I believed based on that I could put up a 6-foot fence. Now, maybe there's some new rule that I did not know about.
Okay.
We're not in
Have
the
we-
historic district.
So before, you need to rethink these things before, don't get the surveyor to put the septic system on your survey until you've also figured out where you might relocate the pool and what else will happen so that you don't have to do that twice. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And have we given you enough now that if we adjourn this, you can go away and replan it?
Hopefully.
We'll work on it.
We'll do our best.
Well, I was just, oh, Susan, you go ahead.
No, just can we make a list of what we need to see, a summary for them, because everybody's been talking. Scott.
I'll get a.
Well, what I would suggest is that you hire a professional to help you through this, because it's, as Tim said, it's very complicated. And there are probably things that are going to be required that you really won't be able to do.
Okay.
But I thought Susan's suggestion was a good one, which is that we summarize what we think they need to do to get this into conformity.
We know that the septic needs to be located on the plan, and we know that the in-ground pool.
Is she ready to write that down? I'm sorry, Susan.
Okay.
Just let's make sure she's ready to capture all this.
She's coming right back, but you want us to move, if we continue to fashion the pool in the same direction that we have contemplated, you would like us to move it 5 feet further away from Carver Street, is that correct?
Actually, can I summarize there? I think we want to see you assume that the patio will be eliminated, because it will in order to build a pool. So assume that's step one. Step two is that we would ideally like to see the pool shifted to the west so that its left edge, its western edge, is 15 feet from the western boundary, which then would meet that. You don't need a variance on that side. And therefore that will maximize the setback on the front yard side, the Carver Street side, the east side. So simply shifting it all the way to that 15-foot mark, I think will help you a lot. Now you got to then recalculate where your new patio is going to go in relation to all that and make sure that the patio and the pool still meet those 15-yard setbacks on the west side.
Then you had some concerns about the fencing that already exists.
Well, I think that for the chairman's point, you should assume that at some point somebody may come along and make you remove that fence and replace it with a 4-foot fence. And because it could be made a 4-foot fence in the future, you then have to have a landscaping plan to deal with the fact that the pool will now be visible from Carver Street. So you have to assume there's a 4-foot fence there in terms of planning, I think.
Okay.
Because we will be forced to reduce the size of that fence.
Now, what about gate? How tall can our gate be?
The gate is the same as the fence, right?
Yes.
Yes, you have to have a pool compliant 4-foot tall gate.
Okay.
Yeah, and that potentially new 4-foot fence will be compliant with the fence that's required around a pool. So you'll
Yes,
be-
you have to have a pool compliant fence, correct?
What does it mean to be pool compliant apart from
You know,
being
we
4 foot?
can't, you need some help with this. We really can't do this. in this
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah, I think we outlined the kind of
You
basics. of
go
what-
to a professional pool company, they will give you all the requirements that a pool needs.
Okay, and landscaping, got it.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, the only other thing that I was gonna mention is that, I know that Liz was going to look into this, but we should, I guess, determine for you whether or not when the patio is attached to the pool, if it's the same setback as a swimming pool or just an accessory setback.
I have to confirm that and then get
Yeah.
back. to them. I can do that
Okay,
by
Ken.
email.
Guys, can I
Okay.
say one more thing to the applicant? The first thing you need is to locate your septic system. Because
Yes.
your in-ground pool has to be 20 feet. And that may dictate a lot. So that's.
Okay.
20 feet from the septic
From
too?
the septic system.
You need to
Okay.
locate it and go from there.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
all right, could
The
I get a motion?
surveyor should be able to tell you who to call for a septic system
Yeah,
located.
I was gonna do it anyway because I was concerned, so I
Yeah,
plan to do that at any rate. I just,
Who should we follow up with to find out whether the patio attached to the pool is an accessory?
I will email Carrie and let you know through Carrie. She'll give
All
me.
right, thank
She
you.
has our
I'll follow up.
all right, thank you.
Okay, could I get a motion to adjourn Carver Street until our next meeting?
So moved, Alex.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
And
Thank
for
you.
the record,
Aye.
our next meeting is March 16th.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
If you're not ready then we can do it in the meeting after that.
Okay, I'll be in
Okay.
touch. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ooh.
Shut up.
Okay, could I get a motion to open 96 Hampton Street, Marianne Eddy?
So move.
I second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Hi, Anna.
Hi, Carrie, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. Good evening. I am Anais Fernandez, and I'm with Tesla Energy. This is for 96 Hampton Street. I do also have the homeowners also on the call with us, and she would like to speak as well.
Okay, I'd like to I'd like to swear in both of you then. If
Sure.
you don't mind, could you raise your right hands, please? Do you affirm or swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. I do.
Thank you. Okay, please proceed.
Okay. Yeah, this is for the Tesla solar roof.
Yes.
So what it is that we completely remove all the existing comp shingle and we install our Tesla solar shingles. Some of the tiles are active, some of the tiles are non-active. There already is a project that we installed last year, 19 Howard Street, that has our Tesla solar roof. I did drop off the tiles at the village. I don't know if anyone has had a chance to take a look at them.
Yes, I saw them.
Oh, okay, great. Carrie, do you mind pulling up page 7 on the plans I had emailed you? I believe the board, everyone has the plan sets. If you look at page 7, there is a rendering there.
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. That way you can take a look at what the renderings would look like. Our Tesla solar roofs, the actual shingles, they are 3 times stronger than your traditional comp shingle. Once they're installed, it looks more combination of a shingle and a tile. That's what's beautiful about these tiles. It's not your traditional roof mount solar panels that are slightly lifted. This is a beautiful seamless look to Mary Ann's home.
Could you comment on Carrie just showed us, and I saw today, 2 different size tiles?
So the larger one is the actual active solar shingle. The other one, they're able to cut it depending on, the size of the roof. So that's why there's two different sizes. So a
Well,
large
I live across the street from 19 Howard
Howard
Street.
Street. Okay.
What you see from the street is something that looks like a skylight towards the rear of the front roof, and then all the rest of the shingles look like the smaller shingles. So what will happen on this roof? From the street, will it look like from the street? Will it look like a solid roof of those smaller tile shapes, identical to 19 Howard Street?
Correct. You will not be able to notice the difference. I did email.
That larger shingle will not be visible?
Correct. They all blend in. I did email Carrie some other, recent installs as well. So Carrie can pull those up for us. Just like different houses throughout Long
Just
Island.
for the benefit of the board, benefit of the board, the installation on 19 Howard Street is the first installation anywhere on Long Island.
Correct.
It was
Yep.
put in about 2.5 years ago. Most of the construction people who worked on it, it was the first time that they had ever installed Tesla shingles. And
Can I see that? Do you see the house?
This is one of our. So I had emailed a couple of our recent installs, just so you could see different houses throughout the Long Island.
And that one's a good example of Marianne Eddy's house. The house on Howard Street is a gable front house. This one's not. I'd make an observation just for everyone's benefit that the code is very, very specific. It was written before Tesla shingles were either invented or brought to the public. It's just one sentence. It says solar and alternate energy systems shall not be visible from an adjacent street or from an adjacent property. Now, this probably needs to be updated because it really refers to the type of solar energy system that existed at that time, which were these sort of large rectangular boxes that were mounted on the roof and projected from the plane of the roof anywhere from 6 inches to a foot.
Can I just interject one thing? Actually, solar shingles have been around for a long time. Tesla didn't invent them. There actually were other companies that made them prior. So I don't know when the code was written, but that may have been in their minds when they wrote that in the code. I don't know, because they weren't used a lot because they weren't as efficient and they had to all be wired together. So I'm sure Tesla has figured out a better way of doing it. But the product itself.
When the Howard Street house had them installed, it didn't even come before the zoning board.
Right.
Right.
It went directly to the architecture review board, and they found it intriguing. And so you are raising an interesting point. So
this is all because it's in a historic district. That's why this regulation is there. It's to restrict.
Right.
Solar
the one time that it did come up,
but it's
the
only applicable in the
Historic Preservation Architecture Review Board approved it. This is the first time that one has come before our board, so it will be setting.
Why didn't Howard Street come to the ZBA?
We don't know why. It was probably the building department overlooked it.
I think it was a mistake. I mean,
well, as you look at it aesthetically and you walk down the street, it'd be very difficult to differentiate that from a regular roof.
Right. I have to ask one question.
I didn't see any difference aesthetically.
Can I ask a question? And this is a different house than the one on Howard Street. We all want to encourage other forms of energy. Is there a reason why they're also on the porch? If you look at the the rooftop from these pictures, there's quite a lot of, except for the porch, there's quite a lot of coverage. Is there a specific reason why they're also on the porch, which I think are the most visible from the street? I'm just asking.
Well, the homeowner is doing a re-roof. So when you do a re-roof, you typically remove all the shingles on the house. That way everything is also, aesthetically, matching throughout.
I guess
I
that's
think
a
that,
question for the ARB.
yeah, because
Remember, this
might-
this is a traditional re-roof. So we're removing all the comp shingle.
it might look more disconcerting if the porch was a different shingle than the Tesla shingles up above. Although you could do the porch in, standing seam metal roofing or something, which a lot of porches are. But
Right.
that's more of an ARB thing, I think.
That's what I think
Can
too.
I ask,
That's
can
my
I ask
comment.
Tim, since you're a neighbor of the Howard Street house, is it generally a benefit to the community, to the street?
It is, but that leads to a question for our Tesla representative. The experience with the Howard Street house is that for certain houses, at certain times of the year, there's an unbelievable amount of glare that comes off the roof into a neighbor's house. So much so that they installed a window awning over their kitchen window so that it wouldn't interact with their life so much. And it even penetrates that awning. And they've made some landscaping changes to their property in an attempt to grow the trees larger so that they would block that glare. And I'm wondering if Tesla extends to customers like our applicant the service of measuring the sun's travel around the roof of that house as it faces Hampton Street to determine the effect that it might have on houses across the street in terms of that glare.
Yeah, this is something very uncommon. I mean, we've installed we installed Howard Street in August 2019, and since then we've installed over 50 homes. And I haven't heard any complaints with over the 50 homes that we've installed. And we're all over in California as well. I mean, California is a big sunny state, and I haven't really heard too much about this.
Well, that's fair enough, but here in Sag Harbor, you've done one installation, and we have a complaint that is, and they describe it as a fairly severe problem. And this is 19 Howard Street.
Yeah, I mean, I can look into for this property for 96 Hampton Street and see,
Well,
I can
I
look
just
into this
wondered
and get back.
if you had any
But I
engineers
haven't really.
that could give us some comments so that we would know how to address it, so that we don't have 2 or 3 neighbors across the street whose lives have been disrupted by this.
Yeah,
glare.
I can definitely.
The neighbor on Howard
look
Street
into
is kind of concerned about it. He raises it as a significant problem. He hasn't taken it up with his neighbor, but he spent some money already, and he's going to spend quite a bit more money in terms of landscaping to try to do something about it. So it seems like something that I'm surprised it hasn't come up in California.
Yeah, no. Like I said, I haven't heard
think-
of anything.
Do you think there
they
might
haven't
be
come
some
up.
research within Tesla or comments? or
Yeah, I mean,
solutions
I will
that you haven't
definitely.
heard about that you could check on and get back to us?
Yeah, no, I'll definitely.
I think
look
the
into it.
inclination from us is that we certainly want to support this kind of effort, and very few people except professionals have a problem with the way 19 Howard Street looks. And our Architectural and Historic Preservation Board already approved Howard Street. And
Yeah,
there's
no,
actually,
I'll
there's
definitely-
less roof visible from the street, in my opinion anyway, on Hampton Street than there is on Howard Street, where it's the whole both sides of a fairly large gable roof is visible.
Correct. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, no, I'll definitely look into it then, and I can get back to you.
One problem with this house also is that you've got gables facing both directions, so it is going to throw that glare because the back addition is perpendicular to the front. And the problem in Sag Harbor may be that the houses are so close together. In California, I'm sure there's more space between them.
There's more. Yeah, it's a good point.
Are there other questions from the board before we turn to the public?
No, I would
Okay.
just comment, my quick comment is I'm appreciative, Tim, with your comments, and agree that we should be in the business of trying to encourage this kind of energy, renewable energy application in the village. And, but I also see the inherent I can understand why there'd be glare coming off the Howard Street roof. I'm surprised it's not an issue with,
And it's not a year-round thing. It's 5 months and 5 to 6 months of the year. And this is just their 2-year experience.
no, it makes sense.
So I really want to support this. And if Tesla could come in with some, either send an engineer possibly to look at this particular application and give us some feedback on it. So Carrie, there's nobody from the public out there that wants to speak to this?
Mary Ann does.
Oh, sorry. Please, go ahead.
You're muted.
You're muted.
She was just talking, no?
There we go.
Okay.
There. Thank you. I appreciate the sentiments that you all have expressed. So, yeah, I'm very excited about doing this, and I think we're all trying to, nudge this climate issue along as best we can in our own individual lives. I saw the list. What's going on?
There's some background noise. Somebody's got some background noise going.
Okay. So I saw the list of people that got letters from Tesla, and I went and I talked to my neighbor on the left, and that's Mary Moore. And Mary Moore is 86 years old. She doesn't really go out anymore. And I talked to her. I asked her if she had any questions or concerns, and she said, no, you want this new roof, you go for it. And I talked to the woman on the other side. We're kind of a longevity corridor here. She's 95 years old. And yeah, Helen Earl, she was a contemporary of John Steinbeck's. And she said, no, she said, I think it's wonderful. It's progress. That was her comment. John Shaka did not get, or Matt O'Grady, they lived directly across the street from me. They did not get a letter, but John has known that I've been thinking about this, talking about this for a long time. And I showed him pictures. I sent him pictures that I took that I'd be glad to share with you if you can give me a moment to do that. Don't share it just yet, Carrie, because
I don't think we need just to give you some feedback, Marianne, I don't think we need a lot unless other people on the board do. I think none of those people would be aware of this glare problem. And the reason I asked about it is that I wouldn't want any of those people to lose the use of a room in their house or something for 5 or 6 months of the year because of this glare. So if we could just get some more information on that, if any exists at Tesla, it would really help us to just easily sign off on this.
Yeah, and let me just bring something up that Scott mentioned. When Tesla looks at this issue, if doing the standing seam roof on the porch minimizes in any way, it would be nice to know that that would be helpful.
I think if we could pull up a GIS, which I'm incapable of doing, you'll see that I have 2 very large linden trees in the front yard. And the front porch rarely gets much sunshine. So I don't think there's going to be much glare off that front porch.
I'm in favor of it. I think it's very, very supportive of of Tesla, and I think it's the wave of the future. And I think they'll find a manner or something to do in order to reduce the glare. So I think we should be very supportive of this type of solar roofing that they're presenting now.
Can I just ask, just to make sure Anais is very clear on Tim's request for more information from Tesla about this glare problem, which is specifically, I'd want to know of all the houses that Tesla has built with this new solar roofing material, what percentage, what number were there complaints or issues around the glaring? And to what extent?
Hey, Alex, this is so new, they may not have that information. And the owner of 19 Howard Street doesn't know about this?
So Tesla.
Yeah, I'm just saying, we couldn't have to hurt to ask if they
The
built.
more information we can get, the better.
Yeah, 50 houses here and.
But it's hard for us to ignore the problems that the neighbors are having. Yes, Susan, sorry.
Somebody pointed out that the lots in California where most of these have been done are larger. And so it would be helpful to know if where they've done, you'd have to narrow it to areas that had houses close by, because the statistics coming out of California with 1 and 2 acre or whatever might not be relevant.
Okay. And
I think the problem is really the lots here are so narrow. The houses are tall So, you know, it's a different situation in this. It's more of an urban situation than probably you're finding in California houses, suburbia. The other thing that somebody had brought up is that should we request something from the consultant to the ARB about the nature of doing this to a historic house? And I guess that's a question for Liz.
I mean, you can ask him.
I don't know. Has he made a determination? I was at I just happened to be at a meeting where this was presented, and they didn't approve it. They were debating it, and I don't know if he came down with one way or the other on this topic.
May I ask a question? How did Howard Street come about?
So 19 Howard Street was approved in that it was the spirit and intent. They felt that the application met the spirit and intent of the code as far as visibility from the street, and that's why it was approved. But upon reviewing with Tom afterwards, it appears that it really should have come to this board. As far as an impact in the historic district, you do have a historic consultant who reviews applications for the ARB. You can refer this to him. The ARB will probably refer to him to consider as well once it goes to the ARB after this board opines on it. And
I don't think we have to do that. This is going to be something the ARB will do, right, Liz?
Yes.
So I don't think we need to get into what the historic consultant thinks about it.
Yeah, I
Liz,
agree.
I don't know if you're also the lawyer for that board, but the State Historic Preservation Office, I'm sure, has a position on this. And what we don't want to do, and I'm sure they're trying to be in favor of this, but what we don't want to do is not ask for their advice, even though we're a local certified government, because they've dealt with this issue. And we don't want to lose our National Register status or anything goofy because of the way we've handled it. That's
true as well.
Right, but once again, isn't that what the HPARB does, not our board?
Yes.
Yes. Your board is here to apply the 5 factors in the law to the application.
So, to me, the only issue for us is this glare issue.
I agree with you.
Well, it also goes back to the character of the neighborhood. I mean, it's not in a neighborhood where we have solar panels on lots of roofs. They're all wooden shingle roofs. So that's the only reason I brought it up as an issue.
Well,
May I make a
still
comment?
think that the code.
I don't think it changed the character of Howard
One
Street.
person at a time.
May I make a comment? When I went over to look at the roof from the street level at Howard Street, I had the wrong address. And I was walking up and down the street looking at these roofs, and I couldn't tell them apart.
That's true. The difference with this house is the front. It faces the street. It's not this shape, it's that shape.
Right, but I think if you drive by my house, you'll see that there are these like enormous trees.
That's right.
In front. So they really block the view quite a bit from the street.
A question for Marianne. If your porch is that shaded, it's probably not going to get that much sun anyway. Would you consider a standing seam roof instead of the Tesla shingles?
I don't know what that is.
You know the metal roofs that you see where there's a seam about every foot or so?
Sure. I don't want to go and put like the roof that I have now, which is a single cedar shingle roof. It would look terrible, I think, to a real clash. I think probably putting one of those other ones on one of the metal, they're metal, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I would think that would work.
They're all over town. If you stroll around and look for metal roofs with a seam every foot, you'll see one.
Yeah. So may I ask the consultant, Anais, are those photovoltaic shingles on the little porch roof, or are those blanks? Because it may get more sun than I think it does, and it may go, because right now I'm right around break even in terms of whether or not I'm going to be creating enough energy. And if they're photovoltaic, then maybe that's not a so sure, no problem kind of answer.
Yeah, I will, let me look at the plans. I have to look at, hold on.
Okay. Did we ask for public input? I forgot.
Not yet.
If there's no one else from the board, then is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to 96 Hampton Street installing Tesla shingles?
I don't see anybody.
Okay. Okay, then. So could you get back to us then, Marianne, with and the Tesla consultant on that issue of glare?
Yeah, and I'm not 100% sure what you want, what you find is the right feedback. Number one, has Tesla recorded any complaints? Is that what you?
Well, ideally, Tesla would have engineers that could take a look at this particular application in relation to the travel of the sun throughout the year and calculate whether there would be extreme glare that would affect any of the houses around you, the way it's affected this one house on Howard Street.
It would have to do with the angle of the sun and the pitch of the roofs.
Correct.
And it might be that this condition isn't going to, whereas the other condition did because of the angle of the roofs.
That's absolutely correct.
Marianne, I double checked, on the porch, that roof does not have any solar shingles on there. So if you wanted to move forward with a metal roof, just so the board is aware as well.
Or ask the architectural review board what they'd be happiest with.
Right.
Scott, on that particular roof, the roof on High Street is in a different direction than the roof on Rogers Street.
It's Howard Street.
I mean,
and
on
Hampton Street.
Howard Street.
Right, but there are houses across Hampton Street that might be affected in the same way.
But also in the addition, on the back of that house is a perpendicular addition that has the roof going in the opposite direction. So it's going to throw sun to the sides.
So
it's a house with a gable turned each way. You have two conditions at this property. So it's going to throw light in two different directions.
So Marianne, the goal for us would be the more feedback you could get us from Tesla on this glare issue, even if they're doing something that they've never done before and they're doing it in this case with the idea that they could then apply it to other applications, because this will be setting a precedent for us. And I think you hear from us that we'd like to approve it, but we don't want to have this kind of unforeseen side effect of having approved it, that there suddenly are a lot of neighbors whose lives have been disrupted in some way. And the neighbor here did make it seem like, and they're very reasonable people, and they didn't, so reasonable that they liked the owner of the Howard Street house so well that they did not even go to her about it.
Okay.
It was only when they looked at this application that they, in the friendliest way, wanted to bring it to our attention to see if there's something that can be addressed in it. And it's possible that if Tesla looked at this house and measured the position of the sun at various times of the year, that they'd say, yeah, we understand why it happened on Howard Street, but it definitely won't happen at your house. And then, we would all feel very comfortable about this. So if that's okay, then based on that, if no one else from the board has some other needs that they want met, then I would ask that we adjourn this until our next meeting and hopefully dispose of it then. Is that okay with everybody? Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Okay, Susan made the motion and Alex seconded it. Is that okay, Marianne? So you could come back next month?
I hope I get a response from Tesla in that time frame. Yes.
Well, if you don't, then we'll just figure out
I'm
ourselves.
gonna work on it.
To do. I don't want this to have to hang for months and months. So
Okay.
you either
Yeah,
will.
because then we have to go to the ARB.
Maybe if we can make the argument to Tesla that this is then something that they could use for all other applications that might come up,
There will be more.
especially when they're so new into this, and this could turn out to be hundreds of thousands of houses around the country, and many more in Sag Harbor as well. Who knows? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, next, 156 Main Street, application to install a garage.
Hello, Anthony Vermandois, 68 Union Street.
Hi, Anthony. Could you raise your right hand, please? Do you affirm or swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please
Thanks.
proceed.
Okay, Carrie, could you bring up the survey for the property on the screen? And while you're doing that, I'll describe a little bit of the background here. So we came before this board about maybe, I think about 18 months ago, maybe a little over 18 months ago, for a pyramid variance for the main house, which was granted. We then proceeded, we got our ARB approval and our building permit issued for the renovation and additions to the main house, for a swimming pool, and to renovate the cottage, which was sitting directly behind the house. So construction has been underway on the house. So we got a little bit interrupted by all this COVID stuff, but we're now sort of proceeding apace again. What we would like to do, though, is kind of rethink how we're handling the rear yard. And instead of doing the rebuilding the cottage that was there, we would like to add a pool house, which would be completely conforming, and also a garage, a minimal one-car garage, which unfortunately would not be conforming. If you look at the property, it's sort of basically a long rectangle, but there's a little jog out in the property, and that seems like the ideal location to put the garage. I might add to this that we have a shared driveway with the neighbor, so the garage puts the gives the ability to park a car there. That's well out of the way of that neighbor.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the board?
I have one. Liz, could you just describe, and I'm accepting it at face value, that this says you're not allowed to have, you have to have a minimum distance of 10 feet between buildings, and that is what it is. But I would think in the case of a carport that there would be an exception, because isn't the very point of a carport to be pretty proximate to the house?
This is a garage.
This isn't, you're on the wrong application.
Yeah.
This is 156 Main Street.
Forgive me. I will
That's okay.
reserve my comments for later.
Okay.
Well, that's a good point, though. It's very close to too close to the building next door, I would say. And I don't quite see how you can get a car into this garage with only 13.7 feet to where there's a fence.
I'm looking
to come down the driveway and then maneuver into that garage. I would say it's impossible.
Yeah, it is pretty tight in the corner there.
I think the setbacks are too big. There's not enough room there to put a garage or any structure.
Correct.
I mean, I would agree. I think it's way too close to the property lines. I think you'd be better making the pool house bigger, which could be conforming, and not have a structure in this location.
I agree with you.
What about, we could fiddle around a bit with the positioning of it so it's brought closer to the pool and therefore further away from the property line. It would still probably need a variance at that point, but it would lessen it.
We'd have to know what the variances are. There are a number of variances that have been granted for this property, and there's a lot squeezed into it. And unless the variances were very minimal, just my vote would have a problem with granting variances, setbacks that are more than a foot or two. Other comments from the board?
No, I think the 2.5 feet and asking for 10 feet is an enormous amount of feet in proportion. I would not accept it.
All right, is there anyone from the public that wants to comment on 156 Main Street?
I don't see anyone.
Okay, thank you. Anthony, anything else you want to offer? Discussion, comment?
I mean, I think that's all I can really say. So, I mean, I don't know if we want to adjourn this and then we can regroup and come back.
That's up to you. I can either close the public hearing and we'll move to make a decision, or you can adjourn it and come back.
I think we'll adjourn it.
Okay. Fine. Could I get a motion to adjourn 156 Main Street?
Susan.
Second.
Susan and Scott. Okay.
And Anthony, the next meeting is March 16th.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Anthony.
So we have Alex Kriegsman's here. Is Tal here, Alex?
He is, I don't know if he's going to speak, but he is
Okay.
definitely watching the Zoom.
Okay. Well,
if you
swear
can,
him in if he wants to speak. So
Okay.
first, could I get a motion to open the application for Green Barn Holdings, 20 Grand Street?
So move.
Second?
Aye.
Okay, that's Susan and Alex.
And I'm recused, so I'm disappearing.
Okay, don't go away though, come back later. Okay, thank you. Mr. Kriegsman.
Good evening, Alex Kriegsman, 279 Main Street. On behalf of the applicant, my co-counsel, Edward Burke Jr. is on the telephone as well.
I just unmuted him.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hi, Ed.
Hi, everybody. Edward Burke Jr., 62 Main Street, across the way here in Sag Harbor. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I'm driving, guys, so that's why I'm telephonically in, guys.
Okay.
And so I can start, Mr. McGuire, and if it's okay, I would just like to talk a little bit about the history, because it's a little bit unusual in terms of where we are in front of the ZBA and the process. And I think that the history informs what we're here for tonight, and some of the I would submit some of the factors for the ZBA to consider. And so this project began with, there was not a need for any variances. There was a certificate of appropriateness that was issued by the ARB, a permit that was issued, and construction was underway. And there was some dispute regarding what happened to the historic portion of the original structure. And there was an agreement with the ARB. Ms. Vale was involved, where basically the original portion of the structure at great expense to the homeowner was put back, and the carport, which it relates to 4 of the 5 variances we're seeking, was part of that negotiated resolution and was approved by the ARB in the form of a modification of a certificate of appropriateness. And I know that's a little unusual. Normally you have to go to the ZBA first before you go to the ARB, but I think it's important for this board to consider first that the ARB approved this carport. So when we talk about the impacts to the neighborhood and to weighing the benefits to the homeowners and the impacts, it's important to understand that this exact carport in this exact location was already approved by the ARB. Second, it was submitted to the building inspector and approved for a permit, and they proceeded with construction of the carport. It's already built, as I'm sure the board is aware. And Ms. Vale will tell you, and I won't disagree, that to back up, there may have been seems a mistake by the former building inspector, in that if any variances were needed, then that approval shouldn't have been granted. And so the homeowner proceeded in good faith with an approval from a building inspector. And I'm not here to suggest to you that they have a vested right in something that was approved by mistake, but I would submit to you that it very much ought to be a consideration that this carport in this exact location, pyramid, setbacks, everything else, is something that was approved by the ARB. Permit was issued by the building inspector, and they proceeded in good faith to construct this, only to be told by the building inspector afterwards that these variances were needed. And so I start by telling you about that history, and then I would submit to you that for the same reasons that the ARB found, the carport is something that does not have an undesirable impact on the neighborhood, that it would be a benefit, and it works together with this house that works very well for the same reasons that the ARB has found.
Could I ask a question? Do you know why the pool house wasn't cited as needing a variance? It's built, it has a setback of 3 feet or so from the property line. It has, there's a shower that's part of it. There's a fitting where a toilet's going to go in. And that, I think, on the same logic or lack of logic that resulted in this carport business, shouldn't that also apply to the pool house?
So I'm sorry, we're not, you're asking a question about something that's not in front of the board tonight? I just want to make sure I understand.
No, I'm just trying to clarify it so that we don't come back to you again and say, oh, we made another mistake.
Right.
We didn't see that there was a pool house there. I just thought you might know something about it. Why? You can see we have a temporary building inspector.
Yes.
With that fact and with COVID, I don't know if we've ever been at 100% efficiency, but whatever level we were at before, we've dropped down a bit. And so I'm just asking you if you know anything about how come that pool house is there that normally would need a variance.
Okay, and I just want to note that that's not in front of the board, but it's my understanding that that was pre-existing, not as a pool house, but the structure itself is pre-existing on the premises. I think it might have been a shed.
It's brand new though, so it would have lost whatever pre-existing it had when it was torn down.
So
it's
I don't,
beautiful. It's got a big foundation. It's got all this plumbing going in. It's far from a shed.
well, look, I don't.
Okay, you don't want to discuss it. Is that the
Well,
answer?
I think I would like to discuss the variance that we're here for tonight.
Okay, that's fair. I just was trying to save coming back to it.
And I appreciate it, Mr. McGuire. The other thing I would just note is that I know the village is operating with a temporary building inspector, but that was not, we're here, it was a result of a turn down letter that was issued by Mr. Priato. And so
Okay.
it's not something that, the question that you're raising now, I don't think that would
Well,
have anything.
our turn down letter is signed by Peter Sarich, not Mr. Priato.
Okay, he may have signed it, but we're back here because of it.
Okay, all right. I just thought you might have a wonderful answer to my question and we could just move on. You
All
don't,
right.
that's fine. Okay. Other questions from the board?
Well, the only question I had previously, and again, not challenging the idea, but just wanted some clarity and guidance from Liz or you, Tim, or anybody else, which is the 10-foot requirement between buildings. I would think in the case of a carport, where the whole purpose of a carport is to kind of sidle you up next to the building so you can make a, fairly short run from your car into the home, that there would be an exception. Obviously, there isn't an exception, but do we, the ZBA, see that as a different situation, given the fact that one of the buildings is a carport, than we would if the other building was a accessory building or something else?
I mean, that would be more of a rationale for your decision in favor of granting a variance for a carport. And, as a board member, you can make that rationale. It's whether or not, I don't know that every other board member will agree with you, but it's certainly something that would be a basis for it.
I guess my question to you, Liz, is there any precedent for having
Not that I know of.
variances for carports for this reason?
No, but maybe you could, say that because garages could be connected, that's the idea, but I don't know of any precedent for carports and making that rationale, but that doesn't mean it's a bad reason.
I thought it was a very good one.
Yeah.
Well, but that was part of the approval of the HPARB, Mr. Kriegsman, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was.
So in other words, Alex, this got built with a permit and everything that got built was on the survey that caused the permit to be granted.
Right.
That's
With
correct.
my one exception question, which is about the pool house, but we're going to put that aside.
That's correct.
That's the real issue.
Don't understand.
The village should have had the discussion with them before it was built.
That's
So we're
right.
being basically asked to approve retroactively these variances because we were supposed to look at them before, but we didn't. Meaning
Well,
they were not referred to us.
No, that's true. And the village
Yeah,
can't be liable for mistakes that it makes under the law.
there are two issues. One, a building permit was issued, but as important in my opinion, the ARB approved it. So it's not just that a permit was issued in error. There was a body that reviewed it. They should have picked it up as well.
Yeah, but they're not charged to look for the same things that we are. But in any
I
case,
understand that.
should we turn to the public? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to 20?
McGuire, if I could just make a point there.
Sure.
I know this doesn't come up a lot because typically you can't go to the ARB. You can go to them for a discussion, but you can't have a decision from them if you need a variance first. So, but I would just submit to you that you're right. Although those are separate questions, they relate a lot, right? The ARB in determining whether they're going to approve a carport or house or anything else is looking at the impact on the historical character of the neighborhood, the history of Sag Harbor that, everybody knows it's a tough board and you get a lot of scrutiny there. And so while the questions that you look at in considering a variance in those 4 factors are somewhat different, it is a lot of the same considerations. And so you're correct, Mr. McGuire, that you're not bound by that. But I would respectfully submit that ought to weigh in the decision, the fact that not only was it approved by the building inspector, but it was approved by the ARB, not just having a carport, but having it in the exact location that it is.
But you're right, Alex.
I have a question. What are the parameters that?
We can't hear you, Ham. You're muted. Sorry.
Ham, you're muted.
What were the parameters that were utilized in order to make that decision? Because effectively, we get to make a decision now based on something that we would give consideration. Would have given approval at that particular time when it was initially done?
So it's a different consideration. You're not bound by the ARB's decision. But the fact that they approved it goes to the fact that it was as built. It was built in sometimes cases that come before you with an as built structure, it's already built and then seeks your approval. There's some sort of, like they built it without permits and they moved forward in bad faith. Here, this is not the case. They moved forward in good faith and reliance on a permit, albeit a permit issued in error, but they still move forward but you still have to apply your 5-part test to the application before you.
I want to know how did it become an error?
It was a mistake.
Well, I think quite often we're getting too many mistakes.
Can I just ask Tim, from a practical standpoint, and Liz, isn't this a little bit of a futile exercise? Because whatever we decide about the 5 points, and we can weigh in on those in any case, just for the record. But at the end of the day, we're not going to have the applicant tear this down, I assume.
You absolutely could have the applicant tear it down.
Well, we could, but I'm just saying, given that they proceeded in good faith based on a permit and an ARB application, I myself would not be in favor of requiring that. It seems entirely unfair. So this is a little bit of an exercise in futility, right?
It's not. It's required under the law. It's not an exercise.
Don't use that term.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
That's okay.
Forgive me. But
That's okay.
I'm just asking the question. Okay.
Liz, could you just real quickly describe to us the kind of findings that we would, with the 5-part test, that we would have to make? There's opposition from the neighborhood about granting these variances. So we know that. If you could just walk us through what type of, because this is a unique situation.
So one of the things that you can request from the applicant is how much it would cost to actually remove these structures that were built already. So you can get an idea of the impact to the applicant. And typically that's done with ZBA where, if there's an as-built structure, they want to submit to you, this is what it will cost us to remove it as a result of building it pursuant to permits. And that's information the board should consider if it's going to consider denying the application and actually requiring them to remove these structures. And so then you would go through the 5-part test in detail and try and make findings with respect to those factors. I'm not going to make findings for you, but that's what you would have to do.
Okay.
Well, can I suggest then that we at least evaluate this as if they weren't built already and see where we come out?
You can certainly move forward as though this was pursued in good faith. Yeah. And that it was not, self-created. That goes to the self-created hardship factor. And certainly,
Right.
That's not as impactful. It's not really a self-created hardship if they move forward in good faith like that, in reliance on valid permits.
Liz, before we proceed with, if there's no one from the public, we do have a letter from neighbors. I guess they're not here. But my question on the pool house that Mr. Kriegsman and I were talking about, it's not cited. We just ignore it.
It's not before the board for consideration.
Okay, that's the answer. I just wanted to get it from your side too. Okay, thank you. Just to confirm, Carrie, there's no one from the public out there?
I don't see any hands up. Nope.
Okay, so is the board okay with closing the public hearing?
Yes.
I want to ask Liz how important it would be to distinguish this, not create precedent, to have the value of the cost of tearing it down. I just want to be sure we meet these tests and that
I would recommend that you close it with a 10-day written submission period for the applicant to provide that information. I think that would be easy for them to submit, right, Alex?
It would. I mean, we'd rather not. I'm in communication with my client right now. I mean, we'd rather not have just further delay with this. That there's been. You've asked about the cost, and so the fact that we've had to come back to this board has cost.
Yeah, but there's no decision till March anyway. They can't adopt a decision till March anyway. So that would just allow you to submit that for the record. Then it could be incorporated into the decision.
Also, Mr. Kriegsman, I thought it might be a benefit to help us when we come to balancing the detriment to the applicant versus the benefit to the community.
Correct.
The cost would be a part of that and would give us some ammunition.
Okay, understood.
May I ask another question?
we're actually trying to help you, Alex.
Yes.
I appreciate
Go
that.
ahead,
Is the house for sale? Can
There
you
is
hear
a-
me?
There's
Is
a for
that-
sale sign on the house that says that it's in contract. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. So it's
That
been
generally
sold-
has no bearing on the applications before you, whether it's for sale. These
No, correct,
decisions
yeah.
run with the land, so it doesn't matter who the owner is.
Right.
They go with the property.
So Liz, can we have our discussion or should we wait to add to it the
You can
estimate?
close the public hearing with a 10-day written comment period and have your discussion, sure.
Okay. Is that all right with the applicant?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So move.
Second.
Susan and Alex, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So would it be helpful for the board for me to start off with each of the 5 steps and then the 5 things that we weigh this against and you guys
Yes.
can weigh in? The first is whether or not undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to other properties. We have had letters, or one letter, representing a couple of neighbors, but I would suggest that given that the Architectural Review Board has already weighed in on this and found that it's acceptable and doesn't think that there'll be a negative change on the neighborhood, that may carry more weight even than opinions of the neighbors. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other method feasible. That's where, if we have an estimate of what the cost would be to take it down, that will help us with that.
Okay.
Whether the requested area variance is substantial. There are some setback things that seem substantial, and it's very possible that if this had come before us in the proper order, that we would have had a lot of discussion with the applicant about how they might be able to relocate some of this stuff, but it's through no fault of the applicant that didn't happen. They had a permit, they were told to go forth, and it was only later, after it was all done, that they were told they had to come before this.
I think you can find that it's substantial because we're meeting some of the other tests. We don't have to meet all 5.
That's true.
Correct. No, I'm just going over them. You don't have to meet any of them, and you could still.
Yeah, but I do
Whether
think
the
we have to
proposed
say.
variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental condition. I don't think we'll have an impact on the environmental condition. We have had negative comment from the neighbors. Whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. In this case, it doesn't seem to me as though it was, because they proceeded in good faith. Whatever the other history of this property might be, they had a permit. So anybody from the board want to weigh in on any of those factors? And so I'm leaning towards, for those reasons, this is a really unfortunate situation. And had it come to us in the proper order, it would be taking place in a much different way. But my lean, especially if we get a dollar estimate of moving it, is to favor this, granting the variances.
I do think we have to say substantial, and then Liz, if you could help write the decision so that it does not create a precedent,
Absolutely.
because it is substantial.
This is a unique situation.
Right.
Yeah, to me, it doesn't establish a precedent, because hopefully there aren't that a building permit is issued in error.
With an A or B approval.
Right. Anybody else from the board? So do you agree with the way I laid it out, or does anybody have a problem in granting these variances? I mean, we all have a problem with it, but is there anyone that it would be negative about it and wants to say so now? So that
The only difficulty I have with it is that I'm concerned that we're getting, in some instances, things that are being built, and then they're asking for permits afterwards. And we're taking into consideration money and so forth, and hardship and the character. And I'm just so much concerned when I see things that are being built without a permit. And then we're asked to put, I know this one has a permit.
We're all concerned about that. And if this had been built, when we first got this, I thought, especially when I asked to see the original survey that the permit was issued on, I thought all of this was built without a permit. I had no idea. So as I learned more and more about it, you know, it became less and less the fault of the builder, to the extent that they're almost not at fault. That I take your point, but it's not that recently that we had a contractor arrested for not proceeding according to plan. So I think we're all doing the best we can to make sure that things.
Yeah, I agree. We are doing the best we can, but we've had difficulty on Wilson Street.
But
We
this,
had enough.
okay, but this is on us. This is on us, not on the applicants.
This is
We
different.
made the mistake.
I understand that.
Okay. So, but I take your point, and it's a serious one, and we'll make it part of the record, and we'll double up in our own efforts within the village to not let this kind of thing happen again. We'll have a new building inspector shortly and new procedures, and we're going to have a lot of these things reviewed by an outside consultant, and hopefully this won't happen again. Okay?
Because we had something similar to this on Wilson Street. We had one also on Cuffy Drive. So this somewhat concerns me. The fact that he had a permit, that's fine, but I think there's something that we have to look closely at in the
Okay.
future.
I think we all agree. All right. So I think I heard at least 3 favorable votes.
Yes, me as well, if you didn't.
Okay, all right.
I would.
So then I think what I would do is ask for a motion to instruct our attorney to write a favorable decision based on a written communication from the applicant estimating the cost of deconstructing all the stuff that was built, taking it down, and either relocating it or just eliminating it. Find out what that cost is.
Sure.
Okay, so can I get a motion to that effect?
Motion, second. I mean, not second.
Ham made
So
the
move.
motion, and will someone second?
I'll second.
Okay, Joe seconds.
Can Joe can he vote? Because we have a,
Yeah,
he's an
Scott,
We
yes,
have a
Scott,
recusal.
okay.
Scott's recused.
We have a recusal on this.
Okay, Mr. Kriegsman, does that give you what you need?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
I want to thank everybody as well.
Okay,
Have a good night, guys.
Bye.
Right.
well, that was a tough one. Moving on to decisions. Welcome back, Scott.
Hello,
You missed some fun.
I had a snack.
Oh, okay. We have a decision for 220 Germain Avenue.
Yes, I actually prepared a resolution on this matter to modify the prior determination. There was a determination by this board dated July 21st, 2020. It granted a variance from Sag Harbor Village Code section 300-4.3 to allow the construction of a one-story addition to the existing residence, proposing a side yard setback of 12.6 feet where 15 feet is required, representing a variance of 2.4 feet. After receiving the determination, the applicant amended this application and came back to this board seeking additional relief. So the board held an additional hearing on January 19th, 2021. They heard from a neighboring property owner in favor of the additional relief. Specifically, they are seeking to enlarge the proposed addition to the rear of the residence and require an additional rear yard setback of 3 feet to allow the rear yard setback to be 27 feet where 30 feet is required. Now therefore be it resolved that the board hereby modifies its prior determination to grant said relief based on the findings set forth in the resolution and also pursuant to the survey prepared by Michael Hemmer dated December 20th, 2018, last revised December 11th, 2020.
Okay, well, this is a good one. The applicant went back and made major revisions so that the variance that they needed was extremely minor compared to what they had asked for. So this is one of the good stories in my mind. So could I get a motion to grant the variances just described by our attorney for 220 Germain Avenue?
So moved.
Second.
Alex and Susan, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? There are no opposed. Motion is granted. Variances are granted. Okay, I think that's the end of our business. Yes, Carrie?
Yes.
Don't have 15 Howard Street, or did I miss something? Or is this
No,
like-
Susan, I gave you that one. We have had a turn down for that already done, but we didn't do a public notice for that one. So that's going to be on for next month.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
that's all right.
Okay, so I know you all would like to hang around a little longer, but I'm going to ask for an adjournment, a motion to adjourn this February 16th meeting. Motion?
Second.
So move.
All
Be
in
safe.
favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Aye.
Barbara,
Be
thank you.
safe.
Liz, thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Be safe, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night,
Carrie's
everybody.
not here.
Good night.
Hang on.
Good night.
Thank you.